What's up, wall fans, common sensors, and of course, podcast consumers? Welcome to another very exciting video feed for Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, and this is episode 117. It is a Monday. Do not adjust your calendars. All of that being said, let's get right into episode 117.
One, two, three, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, welcome to another very exciting edition of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and this is episode 117 on this fine October Monday. I know it's Common Sense Sundays, but sometimes we push it to Monday, and it is honestly not to mess with you. It's just easier on the schedule. So all that being said, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us before episodes, after episodes, during episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's right, facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. If you're an avid listener, you should already be on that page unless you don't use Facebook. That's a great place to get all new episode, new content, new announcements, all that great stuff. And if you are a YouTube user, YouTube always sounds funny, YouTube user. If you utilize the YouTube, that sounds worse. Either way, if you have YouTube, that's better. You can subscribe to our official YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall or at go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's going to, either one of those is going to bring you straight to our YouTube channel where you find all of these lovely video feeds, as well as our video playlists, Mental Health Mondays, album reviews. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff up there, and if you're someone who likes to peruse the YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean. I've actually, again, I have all this content in the hopper, but what's been happening lately is other people are actually utilizing my photo content. I've had that happen a few times, and, in fact, if you are on Instagram, you may have noticed in the past week or so that one of my Sean O'Rourke photography photos was actually printed on the backside of the new album from The All Right, their EP. That is, it's been available digitally, but they have finally printed vinyl, and those will be available soon. So make sure if you enjoy Instagram, make sure you follow me on there at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. And, of course, if you don't like the social platforms, you just avoid them. We have a website. Our official website is SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That is actually going to give you links to all those things I just mentioned, as well as exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. And, of course, the episodes are on there, and there's photos, all kinds of great stuff. So make sure you bookmark that one and check back often. You're also going to find a link to our Patreon campaign. If you want to support us financially, that is a great way to do so. If you hit a certain point, you get your name on the wall up here. Unfortunately, with the way the video is framed right now, you can't see the names, which is, this always happens with my shirts too. I am wearing a We Are the Union shirt, and it says, for those of you not watching the video feed, it says, "Be gay, do crimes, listen to We Are the Union." But unfortunately on the video, you just see "Be gay, do crimes, listen, T, we are." Yeah, and sometimes the shirts, that's just how it is. But I'm going to support We Are the Union, and I love this shirt. I got it at the most recent show. Anyway, now that we've got tangented already, also on SeanO'RourkeLive.com, you're going to find a link to our merch website, which will take you to a different site, but it links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. You can pick up some T-shirts, wine glasses. I'm trying to think of the funky stuff that's on there. I think there's dish towels. You can pick up all kinds of funky stuff right there on the merch website, and it links directly from the top of SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Quick announcement. Halloween is a little over a week away. It's a week away from tomorrow, so that means, for those of you not aware, that haven't been listening for years, we will have our official Halloween episode next weekend. It's probably going to happen Sunday or Monday. I don't want to do it on Halloween. I get all the kids come to my house, my kids' friends, and we have a decent little trick-or-treating neighborhood, so they all eat some dinner. We get some food in them first, and then they go on a sugar rush for a couple hours, and then somehow we try to get them to go to sleep later that evening, because if you have kids or you've been around kids on Halloween, it's a lot of fun, but they don't tend to want the night to end when it is Halloween. So look forward to that for our next episode. It will be most likely be a Common Sense Sundays episode, but it will be our Halloween special, which is not very different from our usual ones. We just talk some Halloween stuff, and of course, I will wear the obnoxious Muppet hoodie that is one of a kind and hanging actually behind me here in the studio. That's where it lives when I'm not wearing it. So you see it often in the background there. All right. Now that the housekeeping is done, let's get into some digital trends. That's right, digital trends. I didn't put the hashtag here, but I know that this should be hashtag SAG-AFTRA-STRONG. That's right, hashtag SAG-AFTRA-STRONG. We talked about it. The WGA ended their strike. The studios, went along with most of their demands, and they reached an agreement on that. SAG is Screen Actors Guild. AFTRA is American Film, Television, Radio Actors. Yes, that is it. I haven't had to remember what the actual thing is for a while, but I believe I have that correct. That's trending right now because they reached 100 days on strike, which is either the longest, the lengthiest strike ever, or at least in a long time. We all remember, unless you're really young, we remember 2008 when SAG went on strike, and that was before SAG and AFTRA kind of merged together, and it wasn't 100 days. Now we're reaching 100 days, and unfortunately still going, but the positive side is they're getting back to negotiating tomorrow. They will be back at the table with the studios. I think the studios are holding fast a little too much, and I'm hoping there's going to be some good faith negotiating. And on top of that, I have a lot of friends that are in the unions. We're kind of hearing things that because the Writers Guild just came off strike, we really studios are assuming they have some extra time to be able to get the content out there, because now the writers are just getting back to work, and they can theoretically push the actors a little further than they should. So I'm hoping that's not going to happen, and we're not looking at another 30 to 60 days of the strike, because yes, content, everybody wants their TV shows, but most importantly, people need to get back to work. Of course, we at Go Tell It to the Wall are staunch union supporters, and I would like to see the studios acquiesce to at least the majority of the demands that are coming from SAG-AFTRA right now. All right, we had a viral Chargers fan. I grew up in San Diego, and so I do know a few, but it's very few and far between they find Chargers fans. And ever since they moved to Los Angeles, for those of you not familiar, the NFL team, the Chargers, they were San Diego Chargers for all of my childhood, and they moved to Los Angeles a few years ago. And there was a viral fan who was very enthusiastic about the game. And there's a good chance, even if you don't watch sports, you have seen this pop up in your social feed, because people made her into memes and all kinds of stuff. In the University of Oregon, changed the colors of her jersey. She was wearing a Chargers jersey to green. And oh, look at our fan. And it was a whole thing. But it also turned into, I don't want to call it a controversy, because it wasn't a big deal. But people were out there insisting that she was a paid actor, that the NFL planted her at the game. I don't know why the NFL would pay somebody to do this. If you've ever been to a sporting event, you can find somebody that is very enthusiastic about the game. It's not difficult to do. That's why you have the fan cams and it's all over the place. So I don't understand the thinking about, they paid some. Really? There's plenty of people there. I joke, if there's Charger fans are few and far. There are Charger fans. I just mentioned the All Right. Both those boys are big-time Chargers fans. So, it's possible. And then, of course, it's still going on a week later. And then I happened to be watching part of the Chargers game. Yeah, it must have been yesterday. Because the viral thing happened a week ago. I was out of town. I didn't even catch it live. And it became a battle of this viral woman who, had videos flying all around the social platforms. And because they were playing the Chiefs, Taylor Swift. And I'm pretty sure there was a side-by-side of a fan side-by-side showing Taylor Swift in this. Maybe she's loving the attention, but this poor woman is just, everyone's always up. She's an actor, and she had to go on shows and be I'm not an actor, I'm a fan, and all these things, and it's utterly ridiculous. But we're also beating that one to death the way we do all the memes and funny stuff, and just it doesn't become funny anymore, and it's a whole thing. So that'll go the way of everything else. Also trending the past couple days on the social platforms is literally a video of Joe Biden walking on the beach. And you might say, well, why is this viral? Did he fall or something? Did something happen? No, it's literally him walking on the beach, and people are sharing it. You can guess which side of the aisle those people tend to fall on, are sharing it and saying, oh, Biden is just walking on the beach instead of doing his job. Now, first of all, this is not a political, I am not a huge Biden supporter. I am not a Democrat, but we look at things from a common sense standpoint. He just got back from overseas. Just got back. He was working his ass off, just got back, and he takes a walk on a beach with his wife. Good Lord, the pearl clutching over this. The funny thing is, the same people that are criticizing and saying, well, he should be working instead of walking on the beach, probably never said a goddamn fucking word when the orange one was golfing every single day he was in office. And yes, I realize it wasn't every single day, but goddamn, it was a lot of golf. I encourage you to go Google, and there's how much time was spent in Florida and golfing and all these other things. But, that wasn't a problem. But Joe Biden walks on a beach, and that's horrible. The world is going to end. Oh, man, I'm kicking art here on accident. You hear that bag scrunching. We went to Art Walk yesterday at the brewery because I got some friends that live there, and I picked up some art. I don't do it that often. Picked up a little bit of art, and I got to get that hung, but it's in a bag here, and I was just like, what is on my... Oh, no, let's not kick the art that I just spent money on yesterday. So anyway, let's calm it down there. Guy can walk on the beach, doing just fine. Literally was just overseas. And then we have the other side, of course. Not even the other side, but this is a much better reasoning. Hashtag Trump for Prison 2024. The orange one continues to be unhinged. In fact, we're going to talk about another story of his when we get to common sense. But this is, of course, trending because you know what? I'm going to say it. No sensible person wants to see this orange man back in office. I realize there are people who do want to see him back in office. Notice the qualifying word of sensible that I have included there. He continues to be unhinged. He gets caught in lies constantly. And, if you haven't seen, I'm not encouraging people to watch his speeches or anything, but good Lord, if you go on Twitter or other social platforms, you can see clips that people share, and he doesn't even make sense. But his supporters don't care. And it's still to this day so strange to me that they just unabashedly support somebody who clearly doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. It blows my mind, and of course that is trending for good reason, and his fans don't give a shit. Amazing. Guy makes no sense. Lie after lie after lie. Stuff that doesn't even make sense, and they're cheering for him and throwing red hats in there and probably shooting off guns and whatever else, and please don't email me complaining. This is not a podcast for you if you're actually doing that. I can promise you it's not. Speaking of red things, see how we transition very smoothly there? Hashtag Red Ribbon Week. Nothing to do with the other outside of red hats and red ribbon. Hashtag Red Ribbon Week. Apparently this is Red Ribbon Week. I don't remember this from last year or 2 years ago, but 2 years ago we were kind of in the throes of COVID, and my daughter was very young. She was in pre-kindergarten, essentially preschool. But I don't recall this at her school last year. I do remember this from when I was in school. We literally would wear a red ribbon on our shirts, and we all looked exactly the same because I went to private Catholic school, so we're all wearing uniforms, white polo and blue pants there for the boys, and white polo blouse and the plaid skirts for the girls, as you see a lot of Catholic schools, the kids wearing. So I do remember it then, but apparently it is still a thing. And interestingly, it looks to me, because I did a little, we've gotten the little flyer, oh, it's Red Ribbon Week, and they're doing stuff so I looked at it, and it is like a say no to drugs thing, because when I was a kid, it was DARE and say no to drugs and the war on drugs. Thanks, Nancy. And, it was pushed on, and I actually learned the opposite from DARE. They kind of teach you how drugs work, which seems counterintuitive. I don't think that really happens anymore, but we do have this Red Ribbon Week. And in addition to like the Say No to Drugs thing, it looks like they have added like health to it, encouraging kids to be healthy. I'm all for that, obviously. But it's strange the way we are kind of celebrating it, I guess, today to celebrate Red Ribbon Week. And I think this was at other schools too, but my school in particular, they told kids to wear their clothes backwards. So I guess that helps promote a healthy lifestyle. And tomorrow they're all going to bring stuffed animals or plush, plush, that's what we, and if you're in the retail or the promotional business, but call them plush, or if you're a kid, a stuffed animal, bring that to school. So you're going to have a bunch of kids, and I guarantee there's going to be like second, third, and fourth grade boys probably beating the heck out of each other with their stuff. I mean, having fun with their stuffed animals because it's like a giant pillow fight. But that's how we're celebrating Red Ribbon Week. So I don't know. It's a thing, and the hashtag's trending now because it happens to be Red Ribbon Week. All right, speaking of weeks, another smooth transition there. We're going to get into some mental health. And this is something I've often talked about, but I want to bring it up again, partly for any new listeners, and partly because recently it was OCD Awareness Week. I think it was actually the week after our last episode, and so I didn't have much mention of it in episode 116. So I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago, because we did not have an episode last weekend, obviously. And so I want to talk about not just specifically OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, but that is the one that tends to be at the forefront of what I want to talk about. And the important thing is it was OCD Awareness Week, which means you want to make people aware of exactly what obsessive compulsive disorder is. And something that, with it being that week, awareness, want to make sure people are aware that it is not a term to just be thrown around. And this, like I said, we've talked about this before. You often hear people say, "Oh, I'm so OCD today." And it's like, "Oh, I got real OCD and cleaned my house." Like, oh, okay. Yeah. So you suddenly have a debilitating mental illness that can keep you from leaving the house, among other things. So please, don't use the terminology casually or in an incorrect way such as that. This can be insulting. And the one of the great examples I always give to people is that you wouldn't say, "Oh, my cancer's flaring up. I'm so cancerous." Well, I mean, granted, there are, but you're not going to say, "Oh, my cancer's flaring up today." I'm like, wait, you have cancer? What? No. It is an illness. And the important thing to remember here is a lot of times it is ignorance over the fact that, because I'll tell you, I have, and I do it in a very kind way. I tend not to do it to strangers, but let's say it's an acquaintance. I will inform them. And I don't think there's ever been a single time where someone was like, "You're just being too sensitive." No, they're usually like, "Oh my gosh, I never really thought about it like that." And it's just this term that gets thrown around. It's kind of like with my shirt, when a certain generation were younger, we'd run around and say, "Oh, that's so gay," And we since have learned that that's inappropriate. And these aren't exactly the same. This isn't apples to apples, but we can all educate ourselves. We can educate each other and just let people know that can be insensitive and insulting. Being organized is not OCD. Just because you like to have a clean house, you're neat and organized, does not mean you have obsessive compulsive disorder. In fact, you can have obsessive compulsive disorder and be an absolute mess. You can be Pigpen from Peanuts and have obsessive compulsive disorder. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. That one's even difficult for me to reconcile because that is part of mine, but it isn't for everybody. It's such a broad spectrum of what the effects and your intrusive thoughts can be. That is the main thing when it comes to obsessive compulsive disorder, is the intrusive thoughts, the routines, the things that have to happen. There's always, and I mean, jokes and some seriousness to it, like the butterfly effect. Imagine that times 1,000,000, and in your head, You think everything has to go an exact way. Otherwise, you're going to have this profound effect on not even necessarily just yourself, your family, your workplace, the world. And those are the kinds of things that come with obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as obsessive anxiety disorder. And it manifests in different ways for different people. For me, and most people that deal with obsessive compulsive disorder do get this. You tend to, it helps, it pushes you toward anxiety, and then that pushes you toward depression because you constantly have these intrusive thoughts. That has always been a problem for me as well. And a lot of times it also manifests as insomnia for me. I get crazy insomnia where I cannot sleep. And when my wife and I first got together, she'd be like, "Oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And now she can kind of tell. She'll be like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, and I got to get out of bed. I stare at the TV. Like, that's how bad it can be. So remember that. Don't just throw around the term, especially because it can be extremely inappropriate. Let's have respect for everyone around us. And again, I understand it is ignorance. That's why I implore any of you out there, if you do, see something, say something, hear something, say something, because most times people just don't realize what they're doing. And I've been, we've all, no matter who you are, there's probably a term you have used at some point in your life without realizing that it is offensive or insulting, whatever it might be. So it's just a matter of building that awareness. And that's why things like OCD Awareness Week are important, Mental Health Awareness Month. These things are important because we need to create that awareness, remove that stigma, and the way to do that is to talk about it. And this goes for everything. Not just obsessive compulsive disorder, not just obsessive anxiety disorder. Another term you hear people say, "Oh, I'm so bipolar today," or "they're bipolar." It's like, whoa. For those of you not aware, bipolar syndrome, it can be extremely debilitating. Whether it's the manic episodes or the depressive episodes. It's not something to take lightly. But again, people don't realize that can be insulting. Don't just call people that. Don't call yourself that. I can call myself obsessive. I can say I have obsessive compulsive disorder because I'm clinically diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Have been for a very long time. But it's not something to joke about. So help to educate other people. And please, wall fans, common sensors, use common sense and do not use those terms inappropriately. All right, on that note, let's get into some positive news. I do get very fired up about it. Like, it's one of those things where there's actually a video, and I believe it's on the Go Tell It to the Wall page. You'd probably have to scroll back like a year, but it compares somebody who's just very neat and organized to somebody that actually has obsessive compulsive disorder, and it really breaks it down in a fantastic way, so you can see the differences between, oh, I need to clean this, and oh my God, if I don't clean this, I'm gonna die. My dog's gonna die. My family is gonna get in a. They're very different. To have an hour routine to leave the house, very different than, I got to clean up this coffee spill. Very different. All right, positive news. Fall weather is finally, Jesus. We had a couple of cool days, and then here in Southern California, we went back into the 90s, and there's a very inappropriate term for that I'm not going to use, but, I kind of used to it every year, and it's funny because I look in my Facebook memories, I'm like, oh yeah, no, 5 years ago it was super hot. It's getting worse and worse because climate change. But we always get hit with this extra heat. And finally, we went from like 90s this past weekend. We finally cooled off. The sun was not trying to kill me today. I have liberated my hoodies from hibernation as well as my flannels. And for those of you that love hoodies and flannels and beanies and such, I know you can relate to this. And also it's just great to not sweat by just being outside. When it's like in the 90s, you walk outside and you just sweat. And I realize we have fans and listeners in Arizona. Y'all crazy out there. I don't know how you deal with that heat. Because I'm melting here when it's like 90. And they're like, oh, it's 116 today. Jesus Christ, man. Do people just spontaneously combust? And trust me, I've been to Arizona in the summer. Like, it is. I think you do get used to it. But it's not for me. I love the fall weather. It's finally here. Hoodies are out. Flannels are out. all kinds of greatness, and I'm just loving it. And this is when I switch from my vest to my jacket, but it's such a common term. I was finger quote my battle vest. Like I didn't grow up saying that, but it's such a common term. I go from the battle vest to the battle jacket because go from no sleeves to sleeves because it is cooling off out there. I also, on a personal note, I had a very, very fun trip to Oregon. That's why we didn't have an episode last weekend. Went up to Oregon. Had to get the dog a dog sitter and a house sitter, of course, because he don't fly. And but we flew on up there for a wedding, and it's this very small towns are wild, man. And it's funny, like there's certain little things, like I swear, people just saying hi, and you get that around when you know somebody, you're saying hi. But we live very urban. We're very close to downtown. This is city life here, not that small town like one main drag. And it is fascinating, and it's really fun for a couple days for me. Like everyone kind of casually driving, and there's not even a lot where we were, very small town in Oregon, not even a lot of crosswalks. There are crosswalks, but not lights. And I swear, cars are just stopping like, oh, hey, go ahead. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. In L.A., people would just be dying. Like, we have to have the lights in the crosswalk. Otherwise, people are getting run down. But it was a very fun trip. Happened to be a wedding. Happened to be a family wedding. My family has grown slightly, growing a bit. And the fall colors, which I have not seen in person in a very long time. I was actually in Connecticut early fall last year, but it wasn't quite the leaf falling time. And this happened to be the leaf falling time. And you see all the fall colors and the leaves everywhere. And let me tell you, another good thing about the small towns is the drink prices. Good Lord, the first night we're there, having a little bachelor gathering at one of the local bars, and I go to order 3 beers, and it comes up to $14, and I turn to the bartender, oh, did you charge me for all 3? And she's like, yeah. And we both had this moment of the opposite thinking. Like, she thought I was like, oh my gosh, this is expensive. And I was like, are you sure you didn't just charge me for 1 beer? No, 3 beers. I was like, okay, well, I can do this. Then it becomes dangerous, too, because you're like, well, this is, what do they say, boy math and girl math? That's like the thing now. Boy math is like, well, I'm losing money if I don't order an abundance of beers here because they're so inexpensive. So that was a good time. But I can tell you, after a few days in a small town, and I know this anyway, is I'm a city person, because like the waving in the cars driving real slow was like fun for a couple days, but then like day 3 or 4 or whatever it was, I'm like, get the fuck out of the way, like just let's go. What do we do there? All that kind of stuff. But it was a lot of fun, definitely very positive for me. And like I said, the family grew a bit. I have a new sister-in-law and I guess mother-in-law. I don't know. It's my brother-in-law's wife, but we all kind of growing together and coming together as a family, and it was nice to celebrate all that. All right, parenting. Girl Scout Camporee. For those of you that have not heard of this, and maybe you don't have a Girl Scout, it's a big camping weekend. And when I knew this was coming up, I thought it was just, like my kid's troop. But apparently it's like a lot of Southern California troops get together and they all go to this campground and stay in these little cabins and stuff. And my kid had an absolute blast. It was her first time doing an overnight because you have to hit a certain age. And despite her being a Girl Scout last year, she wasn't old enough to actually go do it. So this was her first kind of overnight trip with the Girl Scouts. She did not sleep. She had a blast, but she came home like zombified. And I was like, so did you get any sleep last night? And she was just kind of like, not really. Like, but what do you expect? You got a ton of kids at a camp. I mean, I've been to campgrounds and stuff when I was younger and retreats and everything. Yeah, you're not sleeping much. It just doesn't happen. But they had a blast. And I'll say it again. I think whether it's Girl Scouts or something else, these organizations do great things for kids, give them a community and something to do. And my kid is often very excited about Girl Scouts. It helps that she has friends that she really likes in there. But definitely get your kids involved in whatever it might be, art camp or musical instruments and stuff like that. It is important for their development. And I've been very happy with my kid being in Girl Scouts. So I got this one in parenting because this is game changer. And some of you are going to be like, Sean, we have had this for years. Well, I was behind the game. So I had, my house, and in the video you can see, it's all hardwood floors throughout my house. It's tile in the kitchen and the bathrooms, all hardwood floors. Like no carpeting whatsoever. And so when we first moved into this, we had tile in our old house. So when we first moved into this house, I was using this stuff called Bona, which was like a hardwood floor cleaner, and you use cleaning pads. And then Swiffer came out with the hardwood safe one, so I've used Swiffers. I vacuum and then I Swiffer. Well, my mother actually got us, but really it was for me. This thing called a Shark Hydrovac, and this thing is a vacuum / floor and rug cleaner. So you put the cleaning solution in, all that stuff. I've had it for months, and it's one of those things that, I'm just going to use a Swiffer this time, and I'm going to get back to that. And this is why this is so important for parents. If you've got kids that are crawling around the floors, man, and you don't have one of these or something similar, go out and get one right away. As I avidly vacuum and mop my house. Like at least once a week it's mopped. Usually like twice a week it gets vacuumed, and it's all hardwood and sweeping, and I use a Swiffer dry, all that stuff. So I'm very avid about it. Well, last week I decided, I'm finally going to bust this thing out. Let's see how it works. And it's funny because you see it and you're like, oh, the floor's getting a little wet. What's this doing? It's suctioning and got a little brush that's rolling and all this stuff. It's like, oh, okay. I guess let me do the whole living room, dining room here, and I guess it's working. It smells nice. It looks like it's clean. Then I pulled the tank off with the dirty water. Good Lord, I'm shocked. I think it was so shocking that I couldn't go into dirtiness of that, because that is part of my obsessive compulsive disorder. And I was like, wow, okay, so we're using that thing from now on. In fact, I even already went on Amazon. I was like, give me more of this cleaning solution. I'm doing this twice a week. I want this floor clean as possible. So there's a little tip for all you parents out there. And I know a bunch of you are going to be like, oh, we've had one of those for years. Well, hey, I'm late to the game. The thing's freaking awesome. I'm going to be using it entirely too much. My wife's going to be like, why are you using this thing again? Because the floor seems slightly dirty, and it's so convenient. It's like vacuuming the hardwood floors. It's very, very good. All right. As I mentioned with the wedding in Oregon, my kid was actually the flower girl for the wedding. She had an absolute blast. She is wedding ready, and it's so funny because she's like, "Oh, it's my first time being a flower girl." I'm like, "Kid, this is your third time being a flower girl. You just happen to be a little young, very young the first time, and a little younger the second time." But the one interesting thing was, they did a rehearsal, and I was not in the wedding, as family, but not in the wedding itself. So, but I'm hanging out, because I was the family's there, and my father-in-law's there, and my kid's practicing the flower, and very, very shy. There's not a lot of people there, and she's like, and we're like, oh, pretend you're throwing. No, she's just walking down. So I was kind of like, well, it is what it is, and that's always the comedy of it, flower girl never doing something perfect. Well, she brought the comedy out, but she did it pretty darn perfectly. I was so nervous, and wedding day comes, and she's literally, and for those of you that are watching the video, she's picking the flowers out, and she is tossing, not even just dropping them, she's tossing them up in the air, just to the side, looking at everybody. And I was like, oh my God, my kid is a ham. But she definitely thoroughly enjoyed that, and somehow got her hands on a bubble gun. Let me tell you, I know bubbles and stuff like that seem really, really great. Here's the thing with a wedding. People are wearing nice clothing. I was wearing a velvet sport coat. Bubble solution and velvet, they don't go together real well, nor do fancy dresses. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, my kid gets her hand on one, so there's freaking bubbles everywhere. I made sure we lost that bubble on the way home. I mean, she's got 50 other ones at home anyway. But she did a great job being a flower girl, and she had a blast at the wedding. And she was one of 2 kids there, because it was not a kid's, but she was in the wedding, so she had to be there for the wedding and the reception. Sometimes words are hard. I forgot the word reception there for about 30 seconds. Comes back, though. If you remember a few weeks ago, I was ranting about LAUSD and the fact that we are lacking crossing guards at my kid's school. It's not crossing guards, but I noticed today that we have taken a step forward. And I've actually noticed this around my neighborhood, but most importantly, today there was a crew out there putting speed bumps directly in front of the school. So it's something, we often overlook, and I joke about like, oh, the drivers are so nice, they're not running each other. There's an in between, because here in LA, people, I swear, and the stop signs and the crosswalks right by the school, some people just drive through them. It's not even what they call the California stop where you kind of hesitate. They're just going. It's like, and kids are small, they're short, you can't see them. This is going to keep people from driving ridiculously fast past the school. We still need the crossing guards, but it is nice to see at least a little bit of progress toward keeping the cars from driving like mad while there's kids walking. Like, for God's sake, it's a school zone. And that's the thing, too. It's not like, I always say it's because you can tell people, like, get a little irritated when there's a bunch of kids trying to cross the crosswalk and stuff, and it's like, you literally don't have to drive through here. Like, there's a few houses near there, but just don't drive through where the school is if you're going to get irritated and want to drive like a maniac. Go drive on the main drag instead of through the neighborhood. It just blows my mind every time. I'm like, what are you people doing here? All right, let's get into some common sense. All right, Taylor Swift fatigue. I still only know like one Taylor Swift song. This came up quite often over the weekend, and a lot of us were just marveling at the popularity and the fact that, how the Swifties can, she can kind of control this group of fans that they call Swifties. But we've really completely hit fatigue when it comes to the NFL. and it is so obvious, and if you look at social platforms, like even Taylor Swift fans are like, enough already. NFL fans are like, enough already. I mean, I joke that it was really funny to begin with. The memes were great and everything else, but now it is getting old. And she's at the game yesterday and keeps showing shots of her, and it's like, that's fine. Now it just feels like you're overdoing it and trying, and I understand the NFL wanted to cash in on that kind of association, but now it's doing more damage than good. I don't think it's necessarily damaging their reputation, but people are just getting so tired of it. Like, maybe stop pushing it. Show her once. She's at the game. Show her once. That we're good, and then we're done with it. But I think everyone's done with the hype at this point. And speaking of football, this one being college, this past Saturday, Michigan State was playing Michigan at Michigan State. I couldn't tell you the city that Michigan State is in. I'm like racking my brain as if I know. I have no idea. But there's Michigan and there's Michigan State. So they're playing at Michigan State. And this went viral, of course. I think before we even got an explanation, there was pictures of the Jumbotron, the big screen that you see at stadiums and arenas and stuff. And it was a picture, so it's giant. It's not just like a big screen TV. It was giant. There's a picture, and on the Jumbotron is a very large image of Adolf Hitler. So, of course, this is going everywhere. And, I mean, this is not cool at any time, but also with what's going on in the world right now, even more inappropriate. And apparently we go to find out it had something to do with a trivia question that was being asked. And then, of course, Michigan State comes out and says, oh, we apologize. We don't handle these things. This is what's always amazing to me. I've worked in marketing for a lot of my career and design for a lot of my career. These things go through so many people. So many people. You're going to tell me that nobody realized there was potential for a giant image of Adolf Hitler to be put on your Jumbotron? No, don't apologize. Figure out how that could possibly happen. I realize they have to apologize, and I get that. But it's mind-blowing to me that could even happen. You're telling me all this, what was going to be shown and what kind of content was going up, went through however many people, and nobody was like, wait, is there a possibility that we're going to show a giant image of one of the most hated evil men in the history of the world? And especially right now with what's going on in the world? Give me a fucking break, Michigan State. Do better. Do better. Oh, and our old buddy Aaron Rodgers Good Lord. Aaron Rodgers. He gives me a headache. I see his face, and I immediately get a headache. He's on his old anti-vax thing again. And for those of you not aware, there's a guy named Pat McAfee. I think he played in the NFL. I don't really care. He's very annoying. People love him, though. He's very annoying. He has Aaron Rodgers on his talk show weekly. Or I think it's a podcast, but there's video of it and stuff. And ESPN, I believe, bought like his whole brand and podcast and stuff, which is important here because you have Aaron Rodgers spreading misinformation about vaccines on an ESPN-owned show being shown on the ESPN network, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I don't like the guy, so I don't seek out the content. I just see it when it pops up in feeds. And this was pointed out in a social feed like, yo, ESPN, what are we doing here? He's making fun of people on the vaccine, and this McAfee guy and his sidekick, whoever the hell that guy is, they're just laughing and hamming it up and all this stuff. And interestingly, I had seen someone retweet something they tweeted years ago, and they were like, just you wait, Pat McAfee's going to turn into the next Joe Rogan. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And people are pointing it out like crazy. But he has this rabid fan base that loves Pat McAfee. And I think part of it is because he never wears sleeves. I don't know if he owns a shirt with sleeves, because every time I see any kind of clip of him, he's wearing a tank top, which is fine. Do you. I'm wearing a shirt that says be gay, do crimes. Like, it's your show. Do what you want. But it's just, I don't see the appeal. And he's turning into Joe Rogan 2.0. So avoid the Pat McAfee stuff. And ESPN, you're going to need to do something a little better than this, man. Especially if you're going to push Taylor Swift, who is dating somebody who very much supports the vaccines. And then you have on the other side this guy spreading misinformation. I'll tell you, Aaron Rodgers, gives me a fucking headache. I can't stand to look at the guy, and that's what happened. He got hurt, and he can't play football this year, so now he's got to go on the stupid podcast every week and be like, oh, I'm still around and obnoxious. Great for you, Aaron. We don't care. Just go rehab, do whatever, and then hopefully I won't have to, in a couple seasons, I won't have to hear from you ever again. All right, let's move along. More stadium fights. We've talked about this before, and I want to unpack this for a sec. The stadium fights. They are getting worse and worse. You know, I talked about the guy that unfortunately lost his life over, and there was I think it was the Chargers. The Cowboys were in town playing the Chargers like last weekend, not this past, but the one before. And there was some crazy videos of people just wailing on each other. And it's hit the point where I'm like, I can't bring my kid to a game. I don't want her to see this. I don't want to get caught up in this, any of that stuff. It's not worth it. And then it's funny because at the same time, we've had a couple of NFL teams fighting like during games, and you know you've seen this, and like baseball's known for it, but everyone's out there puffing their chest. And the NFL came out and said, we're going to crack down on this. You can't be fighting before games, during games, after games. We're going to start fighting, blah 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 blah. And so I started thinking, I was like, well, maybe that's why. And granted, football, the game itself is a very violent sport. you know, like I was watching some game yesterday, or maybe it was Saturday. It was a college game. And my wife and I are just hanging out, and I'm like half watching it, and I look up, and it was one of those brutal hits. It's like, oh my gosh! And my wife looks up as they're showing the replay, and she's like, why do people do this? Like, that's how crazy it is. So I started thinking, is everyone fired up because the players are fighting, and then they start getting into fights? And as I'm in that thought process, for those of you that are not aware of hockey in the NHL, like a big part of the game is fighting. And you don't see these brawls bubbling up at hockey games. So I don't know what it is. There are rabid fans. I have yelled at a television. I have yelled at live sporting events, but I'm not getting into fights. I'm cheering and booing, and, oh, come on, and that kind of stuff. There's nothing is worth getting into a physical altercation when it comes to sports. Now, great, yes, other things can happen. But let's all calm it down. I'm sure everybody's drinking a little too much. I get it. It's not worth getting into fights at games. And you can't bring kids anymore. And it's going to hit a point where you're going to start noticing that on the bottom line when it comes to professional sports or college sports. Because families can't go. You're worried you're going to get caught in the middle of a brawl. All right, Trump and Sidney Powell. Yeah, we're talking about the orange one quite a bit today. This one just happened today. I think, or yesterday. Yeah, maybe yesterday. So Sidney Powell, depending who you talk to, was one of the Orange Menace's lawyers following the 2020 election. And was one of the people that was out there trying to sue and say, oh, the election's a fraud and stuff. Well, she is currently cooperating in the big case about Orange Menace committing crimes pertaining to his whole fraud 2020 election thing. She's cooperating. So now, of course, the Orange one comes out and says, oh, well, Sidney Powell was never my lawyer. And here's just another example of he can do anything, and his base is not going to change their mind. Because there's literally fucking receipts, man. He tweeted out. There's a tweet where he calls her his lawyer. There is also, what button am I hitting here? There's also a press conference in which Rudy Giuliani says that she is part of Trump's legal team about the 2020 election fraud. Mind-blowing. The guy just says whatever he wants, blatantly lies. Anybody who's not part of his fan base, his cult, essentially, come out and say, well, that's not true. Here's why it's not true. Here's another and here's a list of reasons it's not true. And then the other side they're like, oh no, he just tells the truth. But look here, oh no, well, that's a lot. But he said it. He typed it out. He said it. Oh no, that's fake news. Okay, you can't reason with them. You can't. It's a blatant lie. There's fucking receipts. Jeez. That's enough common sense. I mean, everything we do here is common sense. But let's move on to some entertainment news. And actually, one of these I'm going to get a little fired up about. But I do have to make an admission. So the new Blink album came out this past Friday. And I know I've talked about a couple of their tracks, and I was like, they're blatantly bad. And there was a track that I was like, it's actually good. I really like it. I finally, over the weekend, got around to listening to the new Blink-182 album. And, well, I won't say it's like start to finish great. And some people I wouldn't, we all have different musical opinions. That's fine. But as somebody who has been a Blink-182 fan since like 1994, it is a very enjoyable album. And I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And this past weekend, they played When We Were Young Fest in Vegas. I always look at those bands, and I'm like, I'd love to go. But like I saw Less Than Jake's set list, and it was like 5 songs. And I was like, you got to run from stage to just, it's too much. I'm too old for that. I'll be doing it in Punk in a Park in a couple weeks, but that's a little different. But they did announce a stadium tour coming up. So check it out if you're interested in seeing Blink at a stadium. I'm not paying $500 or whatever like it was last time, but maybe I'll go check them out if I can get a decent ticket. They're playing SoFi here in Los Angeles, and I was even talking to one of my buddies earlier, and he's like, I don't want to go to SoFi either. So the two of us might plan a trip down to San Diego because it's at Petco in San Diego, which is they have a great area there for concerts. And so nothing against SoFi, it's too big, and the parking's expensive. Like I understand Taylor Swift fans going to see Taylor Swift there because they're pulling that crowd. And I'm not trying to go see Blink in an NFL stadium. It's just that's not something I do. I used to see them play at Soma for practically nothing. I think I did see them for free a few times. So it's just not something I'm going to do. New Dolly Rots album actually came out on Friday the 13th. But, of course, we didn't have an episode that weekend. Night Owls, fantastic album. I swear every time when new music comes out from the Dolly Rots, I'm just like, yep, this is basically what I expected. It's fantastic music. You know what you're getting. Kelly kills it on the vocals. The writing is all fantastic. And I will say it is kid approved. My kid, as mentioned before, loves the Dolly Rots. She has hung out with the Dolly Tots, and she absolutely loves the Dolly Rots. So I put on the new album this past week, and she was thoroughly enjoying it and actually pointed out a couple of her favorite songs to me. And so make sure you're checking out Night Owls. And I'm sure they'll have a tour. Well, they just came off a mini tour, but I'm sure we'll get a couple more tours of them coming up. When spring rolls around, probably. So keep an eye out for that stuff. And, of course, a new Streets album. The Streets. It's been so crazy that I completely forgot the Streets had a new album. I had bought the Dolly Rots album, and then something popped up, and I went, oh, my God, the new Streets album came out on the same day. So I've been so busy in listening to his other 2 albums, I haven't even listened to it yet. But it's like the what's it called? The darker the lighter the days, the darker the shadows, something like that. But of course, if you are a Mike Skinner or a Streets fan, make sure you're checking that one out. I own all of his albums. It's one of my apps. That is. I don't even want to call it my guilty pleasure because it's not. It's more of like people know that I listen to so much punk and ska and alternative and that kind of stuff, and then they're like, "Wait, you listen to a little electronic music?" So yeah, I listen to Streets. It's technically electronic, but man, I've been listening to them since 02, 03, something like that. And he's absolutely fantastic. All right, we're getting a Green Day tour next year. This was also announced over the weekend. Another stadium tour, going to be similar to Hella Mega, I think. They're bringing the Linda Lindas along with them. There's another band on there that I'm blanking on. And most importantly, at least to me, they're going on a stadium tour with Rancid. So I will probably check that out once the dates are announced. I love Green Day, but I enjoy Green Day. Again, I own all their albums. Dookie was a formative album for me as a young kid growing up in the 80s and 90s. Well, that was the 90s. But Rancid is, I am a sucker for Rancid. I will go see them anytime that it's easy. So I'll probably be checking out that tour when it rolls around in 2024. And we have Punk in the Park coming up in less than 2 weeks. It's the first weekend of November, and as usual, I will be out there. This is the 3rd one to happen. It's the 3rd one I'm going to. It's going to take a lot for me to miss it. But we did get some interesting news from Punk in the Park. They announced the last band that had yet to be announced, and it is a band called The Defiant. For those of you not familiar with this band called The Defiant, it's basically made up of members who were kicked out of other bands for being anti-vaccine, for being a little too right-wing, not equal rights, not proponents of equal rights, those kinds of things, and they have decided to add them to a punk festival. Nothing against Orange County. I understand that I'm not saying it's everybody in Orange County. It does make a little more sense that it is in Orange County. I don't think you'd get away with that in a central part of Los Angeles, but it is what it is. I will have my heckling voice ready and loaded, and that's the thing is I don't want to see them play, but I would love to just go over there, get a group of people, and endlessly heckle them, flip them off, yell, make them wish that they did not come play a punk festival in Southern California. Some people in the band are anti-LGBTQ, and We Are the Union. Again, I'm wearing their shirt, Be Gay, Do Crimes, Listen to We Are the Union, are also playing this festival. I don't know how that's going to work out. It'll be ridiculous, but I will be prepared to heckle, and I will thoroughly enjoy the rest of Punk in the Park despite their major mistake of having the Defiant on there. And that didn't even have to, just don't have another band. You can't get, one more slot needs to be, just don't, nope, I'd rather have nobody. Nope, but we're going to have fucking Dickie Barrett and the dude from Offspring and whoever else, those other people. No. I'm curious to see how much more uproar is kind of swelling over the next 2 weeks, because there's already been some people who are like, what the hell, dude? This is not punk. And it's not. It's not. These are people who got kicked out of their bands for not being punk, for being discriminatory and anti-vax and anti-LGBTQ and right-wing and all kinds of stuff. Racist. Sexist. That's all rolled into one band called The Defiant. All right, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up. A little bit of a shorter episode, but a couple minutes. That happens now and then. But yeah, we don't forget Halloween special next weekend, sometime between Saturday and Monday. That episode will drop. I'll keep everyone updated and all that good stuff. So we will be back next weekend with episode 118, which will also serve as the Halloween episode. We got to add something else funky. I get funkier with the holiday episode. I always have like silly pajamas from the year before. Really just have the hoodie. So I'm going to find something else to add to the ensemble for the Halloween episode. All right. But in the meantime, make sure you're following us on the social platforms. Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Again, Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's our official Facebook page. We also have our official YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Go Tell It to the Wall or at Go Tell It to the Wall. Both of those things will take you directly to our channel. Make sure you subscribe and check out all of our great video content up there. And, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. Follow me on there for all kinds of great photo content. That's mostly what happens on there because it's a photo site. I don't really post, like, updates outside of photos. But there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming down the pipe that is all ready to go. I just have to find the time to actually do it. And, of course, our official website, which is SeanO'RourkeLive.com, which will give you links to all those things I just mentioned, as well as exclusive content that you're not going to find on any of those other platforms, as well as a link to our Patreon campaign if you want to become a patron, or if you want to pick up some Common Sense merch through our merch website. Both of those link directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. All right, like I said, we'll be back next week. Same wall place, same wall time. This has been episode 117 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell Us to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And until next time, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, remember, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you're going, especially no matter why you are doing it, always, always use common sense.